Emily Reed had never been to a city larger than Topeka, Kansas, let alone one as overwhelming as New York. But there she was, gripping a borrowed handbag and a weathered folder, walking nervously through the glass doors of Brightcore Technologies. The front desk receptionist barely glanced up before giving her a look that said, "You're in the wrong place." Emily smiled politely. She was used to being underestimated. Growing up on a small farm, she'd spent her childhood helping her father fix broken tractors, mend fences, and troubleshoot whatever old machines kept their livelihood alive. While other girls played video games or styled dolls, Emily was stripping motors and sketching wiring diagrams by flashlight. She took the elevator to the 42nd floor and stepped into the sleek, cold waiting area outside the executive suite. Everyone else seated there wore expensive suits and held shiny portfolios. Emily sat quietly, her calloused hands folded in her lap. Her resume wasn't fancy, but her mind had built things no textbook ever covered. A secretary approached and called her name with hesitation, likely wondering if there had been a mix-up. Emily stood, thanked her, and walked into the lion's den. Inside the conference room sat 5 executives, all with polished shoes and tight expressions. At the head of the table sat Marcus Sterling, CEO of Brightcore, a man as infamous for his brilliance as he was for dismissing anyone who didn't fit the mold. He barely looked at her before muttering, "You're the one from Kansas?" Emily nodded. "Yes, sir." He raised an eyebrow. "The farmer's daughter?" His tone wasn't hostile, just amused, as if someone had sent a tractor to race Ferraris. Emily smiled. "That's right, though I've also reverse-engineered autonomous irrigation systems and designed a solar-powered grain dryer in our backyard." One executive chuckled under his breath. Sterling didn't. "We get hundreds of applicants. Why should I waste my time with someone who's never worked in a corporate setting?" Emily reached into her folder, pulled out a hand-drawn schematic, and placed it in front of them. "Because I've already improved your drone's flight duration by 18%, she said calmly. The room went still. Another executive leaned forward. "What are we looking at?" She pointed to the drawing. "Your Model T7 drone runs redundant sensor checks every 3 seconds, even when GPS data is steady. If you reduce that to every 6 seconds during low movement cycles, you extend battery life without affecting performance." One of them started typing frantically, verifying the numbers. Emily continued, "I figured it out using your public design filings and watching demo footage." Marcus Sterling narrowed his eyes, intrigued now. "That's either very impressive or very reckless." Emily didn't blink. It's what happens when you're raised in a place where failure means losing everything. We didn't have second or chances. We had to make things work. Sterling finally smiled, not mockingly this time, but as if he'd just uncovered a gem in a pile of gravel. Then he tested her further. "So what happens when you lead a team of graduates who think you don't belong?" Emily answered. "I'll show them that results matter more than titles. And if they still don't respect me, I'll keep outperforming them until they do." There was a long silence. Then one of the board members actually nodded, impressed. Sterling glanced around the room. "That'll be all for now," he told the others. They left without protest, and once the room emptied, he looked directly at her and said, "You're not just here for a job. You're here to prove something." Emily hesitated, then nodded. "I'm here to change what people believe is possible." Sterling stood, walked over to the window and looked out over the skyline. "My mother was a factory worker. I used to be embarrassed by that when I was young, until I realized she was tougher, smarter, and more resourceful than anyone I met in business school. You just reminded me of her." He turned back to Emily, holding out a sealed envelope. "Come back tomorrow. You'll find your name on the R&D leadership board. But remember, don't let this place change you. Let you change it." Emily took the envelope with steady hands. As she exited the office, the same receptionist who dismissed her now sat stunned. Emily smiled gently, walked toward the elevator, and disappeared into a new world. Not with a degree or title, but with grit, brilliance, and heart. Emily returned to Brightcore Technologies the next morning, her boots slightly cleaner and her hair tied with more care, but her confidence just as strong. This time, she wasn't led to the waiting room. She was guided directly to the R&D floor, an open, buzzing hub filled with engineers, designers, and project managers, most of whom looked up from their screens when they saw her walk in. A few of them whispered to one another. Some stared with disbelief, but Emily didn't come to make friends. She came to solve problems. Her workspace was small but well-equipped. Within hours, she was reviewing schematics, debugging code, and sketching out improvements for one of Brightcore's stalled robotics projects, a compact delivery drone with navigation issues in urban environments. Several senior engineers had already tried and failed to correct it. Emily noticed something in the altimeter algorithms within minutes. She quietly made a few adjustments, coded a simulation, and let it run. The simulation completed successfully. The drone could now adapt mid-flight to variable GPS signals. She showed her findings to her immediate supervisor, who couldn't believe his eyes. "You're telling me this has been broken for 2 months, and you fixed it in 3 hours?" Emily shrugged. "It's just logic and a little intuition." News traveled quickly. By lunchtime, a crowd had gathered at her workstation. Some came with curiosity, others with skepticism. A few came with envy. But none could deny her solution worked. Later that week, Brightcore hosted its quarterly innovation demo. Top engineers were selected to present their breakthroughs to the entire executive board, including CEO Marcus Sterling. Emily wasn't on the list. When she asked her supervisor, he hesitated. "Look, what you've done is impressive, but we usually reserve demo slots for, well, team leaders and senior developers." Emily simply said, "All right," and returned to her desk. That evening, long after most employees had left, Sterling showed up unannounced on the R&D floor. He found Emily still working, fine-tuning her design. "Why weren't you presenting tomorrow?" he asked. She didn't flinch. "I was told it's not for people like me." Sterling glanced over the code on her screen, then turned and walked off without a word. The next day, the company's top executives gathered in the auditorium. The usual clean-cut engineers gave their polished presentations. Polite applause followed each one. Then, to everyone's surprise, Sterling stood and took the microphone. "We're adding one last demo," he said, "an unscheduled one. Emily Reed, please come forward." Gasps echoed through the room. Emily walked to the stage in her plain clothes, holding a tablet with her slides. She began softly but with precision, explaining her fix for the delivery drone issue and how it improved functionality by 28%. She didn't use jargon or fancy graphs. She spoke plainly, confidently, and with quiet passion. By the end, the room was silent, not with judgment, but awe. When she finished, Sterling walked back up. "I've been CEO for 15 years. I've seen Ivy Leaguers and PhDs present here, but I've rarely seen someone combine raw talent with humility like Emily just did. Her fix saved this company 6 figures in 1 week." The crowd erupted in applause. Some still looked stunned, others smiled wide, but everyone stood. After the event, several senior developers approached Emily, not with doubt, but respect. "If you're ever building a team," one said, "I want in." Weeks passed. Emily was officially promoted to lead systems innovator. Her ideas shaped next-gen drone technology. But she didn't change who she was. She still called her father every night, still wore her worn boots, still believed in showing up early and doing the work quietly, thoroughly. One afternoon, while she was reviewing a new AI-based navigation system, Sterling stopped by again. He placed a coffee cup on her desk and said, "You know, when I hired you, I thought I was taking a risk." Emily looked up and smiled. "You weren't. You were betting on someone who never had the luxury to fail." He chuckled. "Fair enough, we need more risks like that." Brightcore's culture slowly shifted. More unconventional hires came through, more voices were heard, and it all started with a farmer's daughter who walked into a skyscraper and rewrote the rules.